Mr. Feldheim, to the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. If there's no additions or corrections to the agenda, I would entertain motions to approve.
Second.
Motion by Denner, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. This time we'll open the meeting up for any public comment on any topic that isn't on the agenda. Anyone wish to address the commission?
I'll talk with you guys again. Thanks for the opportunity to say this stuff. I'm just gonna take a little different angle on this pipeline thing. It's not right to the stuff with the agenda, but a different angle. So this green methanol stuff is starting to come out more all the time. In fact, Cargill is doing it. They're collecting the stuff right out of the pipe on the ethanol plants. It's 98% pure. All I have to do is put hydrogen with it, and they make methanol. Methanol can be used in most diesel motors out there. Cargill is currently doing this. They're putting the first one in. I've been working with the University of Illinois on this. They are doing it. They are not hooked up to any pipelines anywhere because they know how big of a product this is going to be. They currently have 179 barges switched over to run on this methanol. They have 20 new ones ordered that will run on it. It's 199 of them. I feel that Summit came in and convinced our ethanol plants, our farmer-owned ethanol plants, that carbon dioxide is a waste product. And they're going to do us a favor by taking it and sequester it in the ground. And our ethanol plants might get 30 cents a gallon more in California. Well, if that happens out there, they're going to raise the prices here. If they raise the prices here, people are slowly going to quit using it if it's not cheaper than regular unleaded. Kind of the first part of the downward spiral. This whole Summit deal knows this stuff's going to go on. They ain't going to sequester any of this. They're already getting set up to run these pipes. I'm guessing stuff here will go to the one in North Dakota. That's the last one on the line. Harold Hamm owns it, and they're going to make methanol out of that and sell it as a whole nother product. The ones going south, and they're down in South America actually right now doing the same things with this pipeline stuff, and they're going to pipe it up to Louisiana to that ethanol plant. No one could figure out why they put an ethanol plant that close down there. Well, now it's starting to add up. So my thoughts are, Summit's whole goal is to get a monopoly on this across the nation, everything they can. Before this stuff comes out, they're going to get their hands on it and be able to control it all. That's just how that evil empire works that they're all associated with. They're all working with China, we know that. If this happens, our local ethanol plants, they will slowly downward spiral because they are missing out on a whole nother product. It doesn't take away from any of the process of it. One bushel of corn make 2 to 3 gallons of this, and that's just already after all the ethanol stuff. It's another product, can be done in-house, railed away, trucked away, not taking anybody's farmland, not devaluing any land, not taking up economic development stuff along highways. Their whole goal is to get their hands on this stuff. If they get their hands on this stuff, they'll get their hands on the entire ethanol plant eventually. Corn will never be over $5 again, I'm sure, but they won't let it because they're working right hand in hand with China. So this is something, you want to talk about economic development, and that's what they push in all their stuff all the time. Well, this isn't going to hurt the land stuff. It's a whole other product to be done there, and it is going to be, I think, one of the biggest things to come in the area since ethanol. And I just want to make you guys aware, because I know economic development is a very big thing for the commission, and it should be for everybody around here. But you don't have to take people's lands. This is safer, and it will keep our local plants viable. So I feel we're not only fighting to save our local family farms, but our locally farmer-owned ethanol plants also. And I know it's a little different thing. This stuff is kind of getting more out there all the time. And these, you guys can each take one of them and have. It's kind of a summarized version of all this stuff. There's something that really needs to go on. I think their whole goal is it's not anything to help here or anything like that. They will never bury any of this carbon dioxide at all. It's too easy to make this stuff, and this stuff can be ran in most any diesel motors out there. Deere, I think, is already invested in this stuff too, and I'm guessing their new tractors are coming that way. Any new semis are gonna come this way, and then this will be green methanol and green ethanol. You hit every market out there. Our local ethanol plants got duped over by these guys in a big, big way, and now I think it's time for them to all wake up and figure out how they can stop this. So, I think this would be, it's another angle of the stuff if they really think there's a problem with this carbon dioxide, and I know there's been some talks. I'm no expert on it, this is just stuff I've been reading, and people need to be aware of what's out there and what the potential of economic development we will be losing if they get their hands on this stuff and then devalue all the land around, because we all know a quarter of land with this hazardous pipe going through is not gonna help any of the values of stuff at all. And, that's kinda what I had here for now, and I'm sure we'll talk again when we get to the next things on the agenda. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jared.
Hold up just a minute, we need to reboot here, just real quick, like, so we're broadcasting properly.
Clearly, we're trying to get hold of Patch.
Give Craig Shaw.
Yeah, he knows as much about it, probably.
Did they come back on that quickly?
No, it's late, solve the problem.
I'll keep an eye on it.
All right, for those of you out there online or on the phone, we had to reboot our systems so you would have access and be able to listen in. All right, now, next up, Dennis?
Yeah, just quick. Thank you, Commissioners. I think you're all aware, everybody's aware that last year Summit Carbon Solutions sponsored at the Brown County Fair, and I know that Dwayne and Drew, you guys are on the fair board, and again this year now, they've sponsored out at the fair, and I just think that it's disgusting that they have got the nerve to offer sponsorship when Brown County is actually opposed to the whole project, but yet they're willing to put money out there, and the county commission is letting it happen. I just think it's wrong. I think it sets a bad example for the county, and anyway, just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
They're also suing you guys too, so, you know, suing you and then sponsoring, is just slap in the face. I agree with that.
Looks awful.
Anyone else wish to address the commission? Seeing none, we will move on. Discuss possible action on Resolution 33-22, which was moratorium action we took last year on July 19th. And it was put in place for 1 year, and it's set to expire tomorrow. And we're gonna open it up for discussion and/or action. On the advice of our state's attorney, the moratorium was put in place, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Ross. The moratorium was put in place to give us the opportunity to review and possibly change some of our ordinances so that they were more in line with what we were expecting any pipeline to live with and comply with. We did do what the moratorium allowed us to do. We went through, reviewed our ordinances, we made changes to the ordinances, we held numerous public meetings on what the new ordinances said, what they did, and what they will be required to comply with. And that was the purpose of the moratorium, to give us the opportunity to do that, to review and change the ordinances so that we felt that we were in a more comfortable and defendable position based on whatever happens down the road. So on the advice of the state's attorney, they feel that we did exactly what we said we were going to do as a county. Our planning and zoning department, our planning and zoning board, reviewed everything, held, again, numerous public meetings for public input, and at this point, we are faced with the decision: do we let the moratorium expire tomorrow or extend it? The state's attorney has advised that we just let it expire because we did exactly what we said we were going to do in holding those public meetings and publishing and approving our new ordinances. Go ahead, sir.
Commissioners, thank you for being here. But that was prompted by an accident, pipeline accident, to initiate that moratorium. Now, has anything been resolved from that accident that's going to give us safeguards in the future, which that moratorium was supposed to address, that time element? Has anything changed? Nothing. Are they working on it? Yes, and it won't be done until November 24. Now, why would you put the horse in front of the cart before we have any safeguards that are in place by the federal government?
Go ahead.
I understand what you just said, but the same question I have we done any good? We changed some ordinances, but nothing, they aren't gonna follow them anyway. With the setback, for example, I have two houses on my property. The line is gonna be 107 feet from one and 187 feet from the other. That's a far cry from what, according to planning requirement, is 1,500. The pipeline people tell us, well, we don't have to pay attention to that because we're gonna follow their petroleum rules. My response to that is, yes, but you're not moving petroleum, you're moving carbon dioxide.
Go ahead,
And
Jack.
I feel there's no reason to take this off either. PHMSA is still working on this stuff. There's no high-pressure carbon pipeline like this in the world. So they can't be saying, oh, this is safe to do it this way, when the other stuff ran at half the pressure and all that. Summit easements, they say right in there, if this pipeline goes through, you cannot build or plant a tree within 1,000 feet of it. But yet they get to run it right 100 feet from his house and, 800 feet from my house and the whole farm site's there. And back again, let's play the economic development card. No one knows the future. What if I want to put 2 more barns back there or anything? I've been talking about barns for 5 years now, depending to see if the kids want to come back. But they put this through there, and then that just takes away from our future. So if they put in there nothing can be built within 1,000 feet of it, but yet they can run it 500 feet from people's houses and all that stuff, there's no reason to take this moratorium off. Not even think about taking it off yet until there's actual federal guidelines out there on this stuff. This will keep it on, for sure keep it on through the PUC stuff and see how this whole thing is going to turn out at the very damn minimum, which I would wait until PHMSA has all their stuff figured out. If they're working on it, this is too new a thing to let it get ramrodded through. And back again, why do they ramrod it through? Because they want to get all this stuff done before this other stuff starts to come out. And my thoughts, absolutely zero reason to take this off, because I think there's going to be adjustments made in everything. For every 2 months we're going to learn something new, and there's no reason to be. It's time to hunker in and fight back against these guys. So I would urge we keep it on.
Dennis, go ahead.
And I just kind of reiterate what Garrett is saying. Why would you take the moratorium off when in September the PUC is going to act on this? I mean, it'd be just like, well, they got the county softened up. I can just see a judge or attorney sitting in a courtroom talking about this, oh, they took the moratorium off, I guess everything is cool. No, don't take the moratorium off, at least until after the PUC has had their hearings. This makes sense.
Russ, anything you'd like to add to what we've talked about?
We've discussed this a lot of times. I don't have a whole lot to add at this point.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chair, I would want the board, I would think the board would consider, the moratorium was preempted by the ambush down on Jared's property. Has a lot to do with whether you extend it or not. And in favor of that, it looks like that ambush down there actually exposed some conflicts of interest. Things should be kept extended while the things are firmed up and put in order as far as procedure, because those conflicts of interest that were exposed need to be addressed. And I'm asking you to consider, when you vote here today on this, that you do a roll call vote on recusal to see if there's what's involved. The things that happened there did, through the insurance companies and all that stuff that were involved with what's happening here, I would ask that the board consider doing a roll call recusal on conflicts of interest before you vote. Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? Go ahead, Craig.
Dwayne, thank you, and I appreciate the comments and the recommendations from the state's attorney. And you're right, that's why the moratorium was put in place, to get, our ordinances in place. But that doesn't preclude us from putting a new moratorium in place till at least the PUC hearing is concluded and they act, and/or until PHMSA guidelines. So I think if you go in and you address your moratorium, not relating to the ordinances, but to the PHMSA guidelines that are out till 2024, your responsibility is to make sure that the residents of this county are safe, and I think that's important to have that in place and wait till the PHMSA guidelines. So I think you address your moratorium more towards the safety and the PHMSA guidelines. We've got our ordinances in place. Well, whether the state's attorney upholds them is yet to be determined. But I think we can do a different moratorium for different reasons. We've done them for one reason, now we can do a different moratorium for a different reason. That would be my recommendation.
Other thoughts or input?
Let me ask a question if I can.
You bet.
I guess just anybody in the room, or specifically those who have gave input already. Just thinking this through, we have our ordinance in place, which I think is largely a good ordinance that protects the county and protects the compatible use of the land with that 1,500-foot setback. We all know the moratorium, for the comments that have been made today, why many of us support that. But just a question to those of you who are here, would you prefer to see the moratorium extended? Because I do think that's an option, a serious option that we could consider today, is to extend that. But also keep in mind that by doing that, there is a chance that we may weaken the chances of our ordinance being upheld in court. Not saying it throws it out, it very well may or may not, but it could potentially weaken that argument. I think our ordinance, I think if our ordinance can be upheld, we're in a great position as a county, but yet this moratorium has done a lot of good, and it has done some good at protecting our landowners. So just a question, something to ponder there, is that a little bit of risk that we take by extending the moratorium, is that worth it? I guess, what are your guys' thoughts there?
Well, Drew, I think it gets back to what the initial moratorium, my initial comments, that moratorium was to get the ordinances in place. We've done that. I think it's how you address the second moratorium, that it doesn't address the ordinances, but it addresses the PHMSA guidelines. So I think it's two separate issues that are out there. The county has acted, put the first moratorium in place, and they've completed that. That's good. I think the second part, how you address that moratorium and how you do the verbiage in that moratorium, is whether I don't think that has anything, if it goes to court, to do with the first moratorium in the ordinance.
And one thing that would be good by extending a moratorium, even if it's temporarily till September, say, is it does send a clear message to the PUC
Correct.
where the county's at. And I mean, I think the commission's done a lot to send a message as to where we're at, but obviously the more we do, you know, we wanna send as strong of a message as we possibly can, while still putting our ordinance in the best possible place that it can be in terms of highest likelihood of being upheld.
And I would say, your ordinance is not gonna get challenged until they see if there's a permit in place. Right now, we're worried about our ordinance being challenged. They don't have a permit to challenge it with. They have nothing. They have an application. So how can they challenge your ordinance when they don't even have a permit? That's what I would argue to the state's attorney. I mean,
Sure.
you can come in there and say, well, your ordinance is, you know, we're gonna challenge it. You don't even have a permit to challenge it with.
Okay, we've reached a point, we need to reboot our system. This is an important enough issue and topic that we want to make sure that those out on the phones and in the internet have access to this hearing and what we're discussing. It will be down for 8 minutes approximately, so we're going to be at ease here for 8 minutes. Talk amongst yourselves, do whatever, but we will be down for a few minutes while we reboot our system. All right, the light is back on, we're getting ready to start up again. I think we have our problem resolved. Give us just a minute to get our other commissioners back in here. When we start up again, if you wish to speak, would you please identify yourself for the auditor's ability to make sure she keeps accurate notes.
What was your name? Dennis Well. Dennis Well.
Did you write that down?
Thank you. Yes. How about, I got it. Do I gotta say it again?
Okay.
We can put that in the So if we pass that original ordinance in, let's say, March of 22, the planning commission, and then it comes through here the following week from the planning commission, and then you have to advertise, publish it twice.
Just knock yourself out.
Decide for 10 days. So I'm gonna guess that,
We don't want anybody to miss out on any fun.
probably final, but
All right, Commissioner Feldheim is on a phone call. We'll pick up where we left off. Again, if you wish to speak, identify yourself for the convenience of the auditor to keep, put it in the minutes. Anyone else wish to address the commission? Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chair, Chet Ellsworth, Rapid City. On the topic that we were left off on before the break, relying on the ordinances over the moratorium. And I did get a chance to talk to Mr. Dennett there about Navigator's preemption, motion to preempt all those ordinances is in the PUC right now. And it will be used as a precedent with Summit. And so I think it would be very cautious of the board to consider extending the moratorium in case they do go through with that. And it gives you some leverage. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the state's attorney, go ahead.
Well, I was hoping the state's attorney would be back so he can correct anything that I say that's incorrect, but, so I will say this, we've read some of the initial, what do you want to call them, the questionnaires that from like the CEO of Summit that they put into the PUC, and then also the staff reporting from the PUC that's put in there. They've made those are out. I believe that they're public knowledge and everything like that. Okay, so as they're put in there, directly came after both Minnehaha and Brown County for our setbacks. Minnehaha, I think, is 350-ish feet, and we're 1,500 feet. They directly want to preempt those at the state. That's what the COO of Summit Carbon has done. They're accusing us of moving the goalposts. Now, when we put the moratorium on to begin with,
You did.
by the, I'm sorry, with the talk on there.
If you're on the phone out there, would you mute your phone on your end, please?
So as Craig was saying, when we put the moratorium on, that was so we could take a look at our ordinances and make sure they were correct and everything, and do it as far as what the state allows us to do with moratoriums. The thing that I know, that and I want to correct this even for the individual that put the stuff in from Summit, we didn't move the goalposts. Our 1,500-foot setback, and we just discussed this, was enacted by the Planning and Zoning Commission in 2021. And I want to say by the time it got done there, it comes through a couple readings, advertising. So by the time it's actually put in, I believe was early 2022. But that was before, by quite a way, before our moratorium and everything. We already had a 1,500-foot setback. Now, we cleaned up language in it. We didn't have it 100% right. It was pretty good, though. I'm not going to, they did a great job at planning and zoning, but it was already there. We didn't move any goalposts. So I just would like that on the record that it was already there. But as far as the preemption and everything, they're already trying to do that. And I think that if we do another moratorium or something, I think the one that we have now that deals with our setbacks, I'm not saying we can't put a different one on for other reasons, but the one that deals with our setbacks, I think needs to expire because we need to fight for the setback alone and put our eggs in that basket, legally fighting and putting the money towards that. Because they're going to come after that pretty hard, and I mean they're trying to take away anything that the county does have power to do and just do away with it. So
I'm going to ask the state's attorney. One of the things that came up during the break was we have an option of extending our current moratorium because of the issues that have been discussed here today with regards to PHMSA guidelines and safety and those type of things are already addressed in our current moratorium, along with some other things. As far as letting this one expire and writing a new moratorium, explain to us.
That I don't know. We've never looked into whether a brand new moratorium would be effective. I think everybody operated under the impression, and I'm not sure where that came from, but I imagine we looked at it at one point that we had one moratorium bullet and we fired it, and so I don't know if a new one would be valid. I know we just spoke with outside counsel on the issue, and Doug can fill you in on that.
Doug, do you have anything to report?
I was on the phone with an attorney. He seems to feel that our original moratorium was to establish an ordinance for setbacks. He thinks we're going to be in violation by extending that moratorium because the moratorium was set up based for setbacks. So the question comes up, can we create a new moratorium until we have a ruling from the PUC? He felt we were in state violation of state code by doing that. Now, I haven't researched it, but it's kind of like, he says, that doesn't give you the right to stop these people from doing something just because you named a PUC into your moratorium. I'm not an attorney, but I think there would be a lot of research done on that to find out.
Go ahead, Mike.
So Ross, comment on this. So then, if our moratorium expires, I'm pretty sure that we're going to have to deal with this and people on the Planning and Zoning Board are going to have to deal with this stuff before they have a permission to do it. As far as fastening, conditional use permits and such, I'm sure that's going to come in prior to, September, November, whenever they go in front of the PUC. So, I mean, is there any way that we can stay that so we don't have to make decisions on something that we don't know if it's even going to be approved or not, or is that not?
It's not really the county's problem whether or not they get a permit from the PUC. We've got our opinions on that. We're weighing in, we're an intervening party. If you want to build a hog barn and then the pork market tanks, well, why should the county be in the middle of that? If they want to build a pump station and then they don't get their permit, they've just thrown a bunch of money at nothing.
All right, I'll give you that, I understand that, but the argument that was already made that we read in those documents was that we're so far along, and I mean, if they start building stuff, their argument could be, we've already invested so much, we're so far along on this project that it's gonna get pushed through. And I just don't want us sending the wrong message that we're gonna permit this stuff, but we're still against it, we're like forward and against it
Well,
then at
we
that
do
point.
stipulations on CAFOs on state permitting, correct?
We would approve them through the zoning board with the stipulation that the state approves for their portion on surface waters and so forth.
So I don't see how this would be any different than that.
So any permits we would approve, the stipulation would be that they would have to be permitted by the PUC before they could be constructed or started.
That would be similar to what we do with confined animal feeding
Right.
operations.
So we have that option.
It'd be the application or the petition to the zoning board that they could put a stipulation on if they approved it.
I know, but we're still proving it with a stipulation. We're still saying it's okay.
Or
as long
denying
as-
it. It's
And I mean,
up
if
to
the state, if the PUC approves it, I mean, you know, that's gonna be a whole nother deal. I mean, if they allow it to go through and everything, but, I mean, before the state approves it, I mean, I still feel that it's, I don't know. I'd like to do something where we don't have to approve it and put a stipulation on it that it has to pass the state. I'd rather see it pass the state and then come to us. I mean, I just feel that'd be more the order.
Whether we put a stipulation on it or not, they still have to fulfill those requirements.
Can't hear anything.
Okay, we have a gentleman online that would like to address us. Go ahead, sir. Identify yourself, please. Evan? Probably have to unmute yourself on your end.
They can't hear us.
They're muted, Lynn.
Yeah, I unmuted.
Someone muted him. He's muted down in the corner.
The mic there, do you have to
Our
unmute?
mic in the middle, right there. Technology.
Won't let you.
There you go,
unmute.
they cleared it now.
Can you hear us out there?
Evan, can you hear us?
Number 12.
Evan? The mic still shows it's muted.
Now it's muted.
Yeah, 'cause we're not using the computer, we're using the phone.
Okay. Can anyone out there hear us? Raise your hand, say yes. Evan, can you hear us? Apparently not.
Well, you have to unmute the mic there. Oh, your mic?
Yeah, but
Okay, now his is clear.
No, you gotta.
And then unmute your mic. Down at the bottom.
we're using the phone for audio now.
So you gotta go on that mic again, it tells you what to do. You gotta click pound 187 pound on the phone.
Yeah, it's dialed in on the phone.
Try clicking on the mic again.
It's better than calling and get the phone when you call.
Already on the call. All right. I apologize for the technical difficulty we're having here today. Freddie, you're up.
Just thinking out of the box, if you change the moratorium or let it expire, does that send a message that you didn't like it or that it's weak and we don't want nothing to do with it?
The
I think
moratorium
you
or
gotta-
the ordinance?
Well, you gotta have the moratorium, or which one comes first? Either one of them, if you make a change, does that send a message that this is weak? So we wanna get rid of it?
What's weak? I don't understand.
The moratorium that's gonna expire.
The moratorium by statute expires after a year unless you extend it. The
Right.
purpose of the moratorium is to pause, to give the entity, in this case the county, the opportunity to go back and review its rules.
Which expires tomorrow, right?
Right, with no action. But the moratorium's purpose is to allow a pause in applications for the entity, in this case, county, planning and zoning in the county, to review its regulations, to make sure that they have in place what they think is proper and appropriate. We've done the same thing for electrical transmission lines in the past. Say we want to put a pause on this till we go back and review them, because somebody's asking to do something that we haven't seen before, didn't actually anticipate, and we have done that. We went back, the rules were actually changed previous to the moratorium, with a couple minor tweaks to 1,500-foot setbacks, within the guidelines of what we believe and understand our authority, and have been for over 100 years, planning and zoning, is compatible use permits of certain types of activities and properties, and their relationship to others, or compatibility or lack of compatibility to do that. We believe that's within our authority. We went back and reviewed it several times, offered opportunities for testimony, both from the pipeline companies as well as folks, with the best information we had. Quite frankly, it would be nice to have more, but it's a little difficult to come by in this particular instance, for compatibility purposes, and we stuck with what was previously there, which is 1,500 feet separation, with a couple minor changes. It's basically what property line to...
whether it be the structure or the property line.
Right, to where that's at. And so we went back and did that review process. So the purpose of that pause, that moratorium, has been fulfilled. And it's taken us almost a year to do that. So we could have taken action when we adopted that a month or two ago, or simply what we anticipate probably doing is just letting it lapse, because it's done what it was intended to do tomorrow, a year later. That still leaves the door open for this or any other ordinances that the county has in place for planning and zoning to be reviewed and adjusted based on information that comes to light that should be properly considered in establishing those regulations. Also including, which Craig had mentioned, the possibility of establishing a different moratorium if you have cause standing and a different purpose for it. And I suggested that if we're going to consider doing that, I need to see the language. We need to see exactly what it is, because this will absolutely, whatever it is, whether it's this situation or a different one, will get picked apart with a fine-tooth comb, which it probably should. So we can agree in principle on what we'd like to see and have happen. But if we're actually going to take action, we need to see specifically what that's going to look like and consider the ramifications carefully. And I think this body has demonstrated our willingness to do that every single day, and we'll continue to do that.
I'm just saying that the opposition, will they think, oh, that's weak, what did we miss if you let it expire?
Well, it was mentioned here earlier, and sorry to interrupt you, Freddie, they don't care.
Well, I know that.
I mean, they have made application to the PUC to be able to just ignore county ordinances altogether. I mean, that's the path that they're going on, and that's obvious. I'm not stating something that's a big secret here to doing it. My understanding, I haven't read it or seen it, is, they're doing the same thing through the courts in Iowa, and they may or may not have had a judge in one instance, essentially grant them that authority, which I think personally is a little dangerous, because it's going against, more than 100 years of precedent saying counties do have the right, the authority, and the history of being able to regulate those compatible uses and what kind of distance they have to make sure that you don't have heavy industrial right next to a high-density residential area, as an example, to do those kinds of things, to have some separation for those kinds of incompatible uses.
I just don't want them to perceive that somewhere in the moratorium, because we let it go, that there's something wrong with it, that we attack that.
Because we don't want to show we're...
Hold on, we've got hands up. I'll call on you. Go ahead, Dennis, you're up next.
They've already ignored the moratorium when you look at what Mr. Stuckfuss is going through and Freddie's going through as far as the setback is concerned. It means nothing to them. We did a moratorium so that we could buy time to actually revise those ordinances, put a 1,500-foot setback on it, and so when it gets down to the PUC, are they gonna, I mean, it's anybody's guess as to what they're gonna do as far as permitting. Will they simply tell the Summit Carbon Solutions that, hey, look, Brown County's got a 1,500-foot setback, so at Brown County, you gotta be 1,500 feet, in Minnehaha County, you gotta be 330 feet, so, I mean, what did the moratorium do? Set a 1,500-foot setback, and they don't do a damn thing. They do whatever they wanna do, so is a PUC, I mean, that's kinda what we were told down in, Redfield last Tuesday, that the PUC would be the enforcer on the 1,500-foot setback. Is that true?
That I can't answer, because I didn't...
Because that's a big issue. Right now, it's a very big issue.
Well, they wouldn't be enforcing it. They're the ones that potentially have the authority, if they rule on that, to say that they're null and void, that they can be ignored, which I think is a very dangerous thing for them to do. As it stands right now, because we have not said you can't do this, but essentially what our ordinance says is if you've got 1,500 feet separation from where you intend on placing this pipeline and any other property with structures on it, you can go ahead and do it. You can make application and it meets those guidelines. Or if it doesn't meet those guidelines, you can request a special exception, which one of the important components of that is those that are going to be directly infected that are closer than 1,500 feet have to sign off on it and say, I'm okay with it. If they can do either one of those two things, then right now technically they can get a permit. But that's a high bar for them to be able to hurdle. And quite frankly, I don't think they're interested in convincing this county to change it to 300 feet or anything else. They're interested in saying, you know, getting the authority either from the PUC or a judge to say you can ignore the planning and zoning regulations placed in Brown County, Minnehaha County, or wherever it is. So at this point, we've set that, and we think with good reason that we can stand on. We believe that separation's 1,500 feet, and that's a good regulation. So at this point, the moratorium does nothing for us, and allowing it to lapse, I don't think sends any message that they care about one way or the other. Our standard here is 1,500 feet, meet it, or get the property owner that's gonna be affected to sign off on it. If you can do that, then you can get an application for that section. If not, then you're gonna have to find somebody else with higher authority to say it doesn't make any difference anyway. Whether we have a moratorium in place or not isn't gonna have any impact whatsoever.
One quick comment. Maybe where the county's making a mistake is that we're not starting a lawsuit against Summit Carbon Solutions right now because they're not adhering to the moratorium, which said that the setback would be 1,500 feet. Maybe we ought to file a lawsuit against them and say, hey, you guys aren't routing, and the county, supposedly, we've all heard that the county sets the route. Well, it ain't true, because they're putting it wherever they want. Let's sue them, because we did a moratorium that said the setback would be 1,500 feet. Let's get the paperwork together, sue Summit Carbon Solutions, because they're not adhering to what we set.
Because they're only 1,300 feet from my house.
Janet, you were up next.
Go back, you know, the moratorium, it said to review rules and regulations, right? Or did it specifically say an ordinance? What's the verbiage say?
We have both. We
Right,
have a
so
moratorium
aren't we asking
to
the
review,
commission
and then
to
we passed
review
an
rules
ordinance.
and regulations, not just, ordinance was one of the things, but doesn't this moratorium cover more than ordinance? I mean, that was one thing, but, you know, all this SEMSA and all these other regulations, we need time to review those, right? I mean, they're not even in place. That's what we're asking for. So if the moratorium says, review rules and regulations, that is a broad base, not just an ordinance. Am I correct?
I'm not the decider here, these guys are.
No, but, I mean, when he read that, I thought, rules and regulations, it
My
doesn't just
thoughts on that
specifically
are
say.
the PHMSA regulations and what the PUC does. We can weigh in with the PUC.
Right.
But by and large, that's out of our control.
Right, but aren't we still in the fact-finding mode, find out what this all is, because there's so many unknowns? So we're reviewing rules and regulations, isn't that what that moratorium says? That's what we're asking. I believe
we
it.
have never seen yet, flume studies.
Okay, we need to go through the chart. Go ahead, sir, your hand is up.
I guess no one answered that question, so that, I mean, we keep talking about this ordinance, but that's one of the rules and regulations, right?
Correct.
Isn't there a whole, I
Could
think,
be a
many
lot of
others
rules.
that need to be
Well,
reviewed? That's my
Go ahead,
question.
sir.
Chair, thank you for knowledge. Commissioner Mike, you were talking about reviewing it. Now, when this group of people come out with the decisions in May or November of '24 saying .1 or .51 thickness of the pipeline is not adequate for 2,200 pounds per square inch, are you gonna have the ability to close them down if they put whatever they got in the ground already that's not suitable for CO2? Are you gonna have any control after you let this debacle go through, this whole process go through, after you find out in November, a year and 15 months from now? Or are you gonna just say, well, we tried our best? And whose insurance company is gonna cover any kind of catastrophe? Not Carbon Solutions. There'll be another name.
Okay. Jared, you were up next, and then Jerry.
Well, to go back what Janet was saying there, I mean, to review the regulations are coming. I mean, we've never seen plume studies.
Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash
They won't
sign.
give them to anybody. I'm guessing they look a little worse than what anybody wants to be seeing. And can we add stuff, can we just add like more to that moratorium? Like Craig was saying, it would be a tick different, one take away, but it's so
To enable audio control, please enter your audio PIN followed by the pound or hash sign.
They might
If
come
you
up and say,
know-
this has to be a mile from anyone. There's no doubt about it, this is so much more dangerous than they even realize. Or is that just something that comes out, we have to start the whole process over then? Or how do we, I just don't like taking it off because I think it takes away from all the work that you guys have done to get that ordinance out there, especially going into the PUC thing, because we need our counties to look as strong and stand as tall and proud as they ever have going into that. And I guess from there, at least keep it on through the PUC thing. That way, if there's other things that come up, there's just so much unknown. There's never been one with this much pressure around, and this stuff could be very dangerous. If it's a 24-inch pipe under 2,300 pounds of pressure with a 21-mile check valve, that breaks. That plume cloud could be 7 to 12 miles wide. And those valves, they ain't just gonna slam shut when they're on that deal. I don't know, Mississippi's pressure was not near that high. That was a mile away from that town, and that check valve only shut halfway down and it froze up. I mean, you start taking this and then now you're 3 times bigger a pipe and twice the pressure, twice the miles in between. I mean, there's so much unknown that could be a damn catastrophe. But say it breaks out west of town. Aberdeen is lower than elevation than all of that out there. We have a lot of west-northwest winds. Those are usually our good blowers if something happens. I mean, that pipe was a mile away from Mississippi and came down through that town. And it's already, we're kind of there. I just think there's so much unknown just for the protection of the people and just for everybody to learn more on this, that we need to at least extend it through this PUC thing for sure. But I see what you guys are saying. We put it on to do this for the ordinance. Can you add, I don't know how to extend that and do it all the...
Well, that's what you're asking us to do without showing me what that looks like.
Correct.
What does that look like?
We've never seen a plume study. We can't.
No, but I'm talking about to extend it for what purpose? What exactly does that look like? What does that say on paper to be able to do it and be able to
We
stand
need to
it?
see what PHMSA's regulations are. We're gonna keep the moratorium on until PHMSA has its regulations set out for this pipeline. To be typed up that simple and keep it on there, because they're the ones who control all this stuff, and they're still figuring out, because there's nothing been done like this in the damn world, not just around here.
But they have to comply with that either way.
Well, you'd hope so, but if they already ramrod this through, like they're trying to do, they'll already be digging pipes in and trying all this stuff before they completely get that all done in November. That's what I'm saying. I think if we could get that on...
Well, at this point in Brown County, if they want an application to dig, and I'm gonna back up a second, and I'm gonna come back to this. They've been on your property, and they've been on your property, and they've been on everybody else's property, not paying attention, not intending on following our setback regulations. And my understanding is they've got a judge that said that they can do that. With what we've got in place right now when it comes to trespass laws in this state and their permission to do the studies that they're doing with 30-day notice, they can pretty much trample all over your place and get away with it. We have no control over
If you had
that.
a sheriff stand up for the Constitution, it would be stopped right
They're,
now.
they're trying to
Right
enforce,
now.
I'm not, they're
And we
trying to
know
enforce
that.
what we understand the rule of law is as it is right now. And right now, my understanding is that they've got a ruling that says with 30-day notice, they can trample on your property wherever the heck they want to go, which I think is total BS, but I can't change that, okay?
I know there's things constitution-wise. Read the book Sheriff Mack just wrote, explains all this stuff. He did this stuff and stood up for the people, and you're gonna go up to the big-time courts right in a damn hurry, but the Constitution is there for a reason. And maybe that's the way we have to do this. We gotta get some backbone in this country, or we're gonna damn lose it all in a quick hurry, so.
Okay, Jerry is up next, then Drew, then Commissioner Weeks. Go
I
ahead,
was just
Jerry.
gonna say that I've had enough conversation with representatives of Summit, and I don't believe that they intend to follow the setback rule, or any other rule that the county ordinance group, zoning and planning have passed, because they feel that they do not have to comply, and that they only are going to follow federal rules dealing with oil and petroleum products. And that's what they're saying. But we are a common carrier, and so therefore, that's what they're hanging their hat on. So I don't believe that any type of regulation that an extended moratorium, unless you extend a moratorium for 30 years, then, of course, they'll be obsolete, and they'll have an abandoned. And the commission, 30 years from now, will just, what are we gonna do with this abandoned pipeline? Because it'll be gone. But anyway, they do not intend to follow. And that's long and short of it, you know.
I think that's quite obvious. Drew?
Yeah, so back to the conversation over here a while back. It is obvious that they are not intending to follow it, but that being said, we know that this ordinance is going to be heard before the PUC, going to probably be before a judge somewhere. We don't know what that ruling is going to say or be, but if it's upheld by the PUC and by the courts, I mean, it'd be my full intention, I believe the full intention of this county, to make sure that that ordinance is being followed and every T is being crossed and every I is being dotted. Otherwise, they're in violation. And if they're in violation, they can't just get away with it. They must follow the law if it's upheld. Now, in regards to the moratorium, I think it would make sense to enact something new, a new moratorium extended until the PUC has made a decision. I would like to see it first, to read it, review it, and look at what possible legal implications that has, but I'd be very open to extending that moratorium pending an opportunity to read it, to write it, read it, and a new one, yeah. Write it, read it, and look at whatever legal implications we have, because I think that makes your job easier. And it sends a message too, which I think is a big portion of what we're trying to do here with that moratorium. The former moratorium, I think, served its purpose, but we know a year is tomorrow. But that being said, I think a new moratorium with different language, if we think the legal implications are okay, makes sense. But I hate to make, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't want to make a legal decision without reading the law first, I guess. But otherwise, I think we really strongly should consider trying to enact something new.
Mr. Weeks.
In essence, recognizing that there are rulings to come from the Public Utilities Commission and from PHMSA that may impact regulations.
And specifically
Right.
specifically the PUC.
That recognize the purpose of the moratorium is to recognize that we anticipate those decisions coming that may impact application of our ordinances or not.
Correct.
I'd be in favor of that if I could see it, and that's specifically what it targeted and what it said.
So one course of action could be to allow our current ordinance or a moratorium expire tomorrow like it was originally planned, with that motion also including the drafting of a new moratorium and the language to be acted on next Tuesday.
Well, actually, we don't need any action to do that other than direct the state, or the state's attorney's office to work on language and consideration.
Acknowledge the expiration of the current moratorium, and then have the motion say, have the state's attorney work on a new moratorium with specific language regarding the PUC permitting process. Is that basically what we want to do?
I'm all in favor of that, but when my conversation with the other attorney was, didn't know that we had the right to create a moratorium to stop something. Because he said, basically, that's what you're doing. He said, they'll file an injunction so fast and throw that out. So I don't know. So now we're talking about creating a new one, getting rid of this one. Once this goes tomorrow, we don't look back, and all of a sudden we can't provide a new one. Where are we at then? I guess there's so many different variables to this thing that nobody knows what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. And that's the problem we have is you talk to one attorney, says, this is what's gonna happen from here, because this company is just bullying through everything. I don't know what the right thing to do is. I don't know if we wanna let the other one expire and try to create a new one and find out the new one's just gonna get an injunction filed on it.
Well, I didn't talk to your attorney, whoever you talked to.
Well, I talked to the one that handles it for the county.
Okay, I think our current moratorium basically doesn't stop anything, it postpones it. It says that we can't do anything permit-wise until we've had a chance to review our ordinance. Any new one could say the exact same thing. We're not trying to stop it, we're trying to delay it until the PUC has met and made their findings and their determination of how they want to do the permit process. That's all we're doing, is just writing a new ordinance, or a new moratorium that is based on the action of the PUC. It could be literally that simple, I think.
So what we're talking about is further study and language for consideration.
Exactly.
I'm all for it, but I guess we'll just wait and see what happens.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chair, wouldn't a new moratorium be a consent to the loss of the common carrier argument? Because they are a common carrier. There's a huge arguments out there. Iowa's already got a judge that says that they're not a common carrier. So if you rely on the ordinance, you lose that argument. And if you extend a new one, you may lose the argument that you could come back on them for not being a common carrier, and you don't have to put up with anything they say. I think it's real clear that you're on that fine line, like some of the guys are talking about, an old one or a new one, what that means to the basic common carrier. I've got 3 pipelines going through my property in another state, 2 26-inchers and a 36-incher. Williams goes all the way to New York. They're gonna take all of those pipelines and take the natural gas out of them. That's what's being planned. If you've been to the PHMSA operation down there in Iowa and those meetings, they're planning on nationwide CO2 pipelines. They're selling this natural gas in our entities to China or something. But, so the common carrier thing is what we're looking at down there. We're saying they're switching this stuff out, taking all the benefits from these pipeline agreements from years ago. And you've got a national argument right here that you guys are on the forefront of deciding. Very important.
Go ahead, Craig.
Dwayne, would there be any problem with extending the moratorium for like 30 days until we get some other language in place? I mean, is there a... That's what I was thinking. We're not extending it for a year, but just 30 days, with the motion being that we get some language in place that the commissioners are looking for.
And like Doug said, to find out even if another one can be, there's a lot of questions here.
Is that an option, I guess I'm asking of the commission?
I'm not an attorney, but I would certainly think we have the right to extend it for 30 days if we so choose.
Yeah, you do. I wish somebody would have thought of this before today. That would have been helpful. But our recommendation is that it serves its purpose. It's up to you guys if you want to extend it.
That was, the other attorney that's working through this thing said that we'd probably be, not in violation, but I think if we extend it for 30 days, we'd have our language in place for a new one if we could, and before anybody could act on what happened here, if extended 30 days, the 30 days would pass before they could ever bring any more suit towards us.
Well, it's clearly uncharted waters, and nobody has all of the right answers at this point. So I think we have a pretty good consensus how everyone in the room feels, their thoughts, their viewpoints. I think it's time for the commission to take action on the current moratorium, whether we let it expire and immediately start drafting language for a new one, or extend it for 30 days with the intent of drafting a new language for a new moratorium, if we can legally do that. But that gives us an opportunity to research it. Go ahead.
When is our court, Ross, when's our
I don't
court
have
date?
the calendar, I don't know what the next hearing is.
Okay.
Outside counsel's handling all that.
Is it within 30 days?
I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
Normally these things move pretty slow.
Can I make a motion?
Absolutely.
I would make a motion that we extend the current moratorium for 30 days with the intent of looking at all of our options and hopefully having a solution determined, at least a week ahead of time when that expires in 30 days.
Okay, we have a motion on the table.
Mike, did you have something? I'll second for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
At this point, I'm probably gonna vote no, because I'm struggling to find the value in extending the current moratorium as discussed, because I think we've done what its intended purpose was. I don't believe there's anything in state law that precludes us from establishing another moratorium or purpose. So my only concern is that what's the value in extending it for 30 days? I'm wholeheartedly in favor of looking at language, if we can come up with some language that provides us some cover going forward, and would be in favor of a new moratorium, having the opportunity to read it and make sure that it does whatever its intended purpose would be, because there is, we expect, rulings from the PUC on whether or not they're gonna honor ours and other counties' setback ordinances, and there are, and we expect, good luck, specific PHMSA regulations that this or any other company is gonna have to adhere to regardless, no matter what. Right now, I believe our ordinances that have been in place for more than 180 days require that if they make application, it's gotta be 1,500 feet setback, or it's gotta have the approval of the affected landowner in order to make application to be successful, to receive authority to do that. That does leave a very narrow window of opportunity if they can meet that threshold in the application that they may put forward. I don't think that it's gonna hurt us, one way or the other. I don't know that there's anything that's bad about extending it for another 30 days, other than it just kind of extends the hope that it's gonna make a difference. I don't believe it sends a message to them that we think our ordinances are weak, or that we think we're in a weak position anymore, one way or the other. I respect that perspective, and I appreciate the conversation about it, but I think it's clearly understood enough, where we're at and where the strategy is, on all of this that's going on here and so forth. So, I want us to be in as strong a position as possible, but I'm just not convinced that extending this moratorium is gonna provide any benefit. I don't know that it does any harm, but I'm just not convinced that it provides us with the benefit that we hope that it does. So, not to taint it one way or the other, but I'm just not gonna vote to extend it, because I have difficulty finding the value in that part of the action.
Go ahead, Doug.
If I understood you, Scott, if they do issue a permit, it has to be with state approval also.
The zoning board of adjustments can make that stipulation.
Okay, so if anybody came to you for a permit in the next 30 days, you could stipulate that it'd have to have state approval.
No, they'd have to go through the zoning board first to
Right.
have their conditional use approved, and they'd have to have all their waivers signed.
And then you can put the stipulation
And
on.
then if they approved it at the zoning board for that project to go forward, then they can approve it with the stipulation. As far as us, our permit, we can't issue a permit with the stipulation to wait for, like, the state's ruling or something. It would have to be by the zoning board.
So in a sense, what you would do would actually give us the same 30 days by extending this. You have a way of controlling that.
The zoning board would.
You'd have a way of controlling that through your planning and zoning board for 30 days if somebody would come to you for a permit.
They can.
So basically Scott wouldn't issue, they would approve it, but Scott wouldn't be able to issue the permit until the state approval is made.
Well, as
Is
it
that
stands
right?
right now, our meeting is tonight. Like, it just so happens that our planning zoning meeting is tonight. 30 days from now, on the, whatever, the third Tuesday of the month is our next one. It would be hard pressed to even get on that one if they're gonna start putting stuff in now. So there is gonna be nothing in 30 days anyways, as of right now. Even if there's moratorium or no moratorium, to put it in and to get it on that one, it would be tough. They might be, I'm not gonna say, they might be able to, but it's still gonna be 30 days anyways at that point.
They'd have to submit all their waivers first.
Well, yeah, I mean, if
So
they
that they
had
have their
everything,
path
yeah,
kind of
but
clean.
the earliest would be 30 days from now that it could even be heard by planning and zoning. I mean,
So in a sense, the moratorium really isn't gonna do anything by extending it, because we have a little protection in the back door.
Right.
If we extended it 30 days, that would extend it to, I believe, if my math is right, to Friday, August 18th. Your meeting should be Tuesday, August 15th. So that
Yeah,
would...
third Tuesday of the
That would
month.
extend the
Yeah.
moratorium past your next meeting.
From a practical standpoint, they can't do anything between now and then anyway.
Exactly.
Right.
My concern is with this, and I'm 100% fine with having the state's attorney look into drafting something else beyond that. My concern is if we extend this, we are still in a court battle over the moratorium, which I don't think is the focus that we need. I think we need to be, because I mean, Summit has got way more money than we do to spend on attorneys. And I'd rather put our money into fighting to at least have the ordinance stay up, because that's what they give. I mean, that is one of the main things counties are in charge of in this process that we can actually enforce. And I'd like to be able to put our money towards that as far as the attorneys and fight that. I mean, I'm not saying that we can't draft something different, but I think our ordinance is good. I think it does stand up well. I think it will be enforced in court too, but I'm biased, I guess, too.
And I agree with everything that's been said here. I too probably won't support the extension because I think it's a moot point. We have the ability to control what if anything would happen in the next 30 days anyway. So if we let this moratorium expire, have the state's attorney start drafting a new moratorium with more specific language regarding the action of the PUC and whatever they decide, the worst case is we're going to be without a moratorium while we're drafting a new one, but we have our ordinance in place which basically does the same thing as our moratorium anyway. By the time they jump through those hoops and the planning and zoning meets third week in Tuesday or in August, I mean, the timeline is the same. So I think we let this one expire and get busy on drafting a new moratorium and enact that if we're okay with the language. I think we achieve the same purpose, same result.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with anything that was said either, except on the other hand, by extending it 30 days, it does give the county, it does extend the moratorium for that process while we can look. It gives us a little more time, where if the moratorium lapses tomorrow, we might be a little more hurried to say, oh, let's hurry up and get this other moratorium in place next week or, in 2 weeks, where now, if we would extend by 30 days, that gives us 4 weeks to say, in 4 weeks from today, we'll consider whether or not we want to move forward with a different moratorium or not. It gives us more opportunities to read the law and decide what kind of legal footing we're on. But I don't, disagree with your guys' points. I probably feel a little bit better leaving it on for the 30 days, but that's if that's the direction you guys wanna go, that's up to you guys too, so.
Freddie?
What is the negative of doing a 30-day extension?
We're still battling the court case when we're being sued over it
Right,
right now. So
right.
our attorneys are working on that and not working on, I mean, I'm not saying they can't multitask, but they're gonna be, that one's at the forefront, because we haven't been sued yet over the ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
well, they're not, I don't know if they're actually gonna try to get it thrown out at the PUC level and not even worry about going to court. I mean, that's, from the way I read through the comments made, that's what they're gonna try to do. But if it doesn't happen there, we'll be sued for it. So that one will happen, but that would be the problem with keeping it on for another 30 days, is we're still fighting that one.
Okay, Frankfurt and then Weeks.
What exactly in a new moratorium, I mean, with the current moratorium, basically the county bought time in order to, and I remember, I mean, it was an issue of actually having planning and zoning become active and do something, which the 1,500-foot setback was a result of that. But to create a new moratorium, what are the basics of benefit to the county? What's the county buying time for? You can't tell PHMSA to do something different, DOT, the Hazardous Pipeline Act, any of those things. What exactly would a new moratorium buy time for? I mean, I can't get it in my head what a new moratorium would benefit. How would it benefit the county?
I think the intent, Dennis, would be to not have to put the planning and zoning board through, force them to go through steps of approving it with a stipulation on. This would just basically say they couldn't do anything, they couldn't take any action until after the PUC has made a determination. It probably only buys another month. Instead of 30 days, it's probably 60 days. Because mid-September or November, whenever they're set to meet, that date may be pushed back again and again too. We don't know. But I think it basically says planning and zoning doesn't have to deal with it, prove something with a stipulation on it, because they can't until the PUC. Am I right? Is that kind of the intent? Based on what I've heard?
I haven't looked into Webster's to see what the definition of a moratorium is, but this seems to me like it's putting a stop or a stay on something, and in the moratorium that is to expire tomorrow was to give planning and zoning the opportunity. It was a stop, stay, and I don't see where the county has any authority to do an additional moratorium, whether it involves PHMSA. I mean, maybe I'm way off, and I'd like to have somebody, so I can get it in my head, how a new moratorium is really gonna benefit the county.
Well, that's why I would like to see it and understand what the ramifications are, but I think Commissioner Gage has got a valid point, which is, you know, actually extending the moratorium puts us in a weaker position, because we're focusing on fighting about whether we have the authority to do the moratorium. We did what the moratorium gave us the opportunity according to state law to do. We went back and reviewed our ordinances, which were put in place well before all of this, you know, when it first came to light. Planning and zoning was charged with and went back and reviewed and made recommendations for setbacks, and they were adopted. And we were asked to reconsider those, and we put the moratorium on place to do that. And we gave everyone the opportunity, and quite frankly, you know, those that are trying to put this thing in place had an opportunity. They were even chastised by a member of the audience at the beginning of that process by a gentleman who, and I don't have his name directly, he said, "I came to this meeting expecting to support the pipeline, and after hearing the testimony in our commission chambers about the positions and what was going on, you know, he chastised them and said, you're given an opportunity to present information to make your case, to make changes to this, and you're not stepping up to the plate to do that." And from my perspective, they were given that opportunity in planning and zoning, again, to go back and review it, and did not take advantage of that opportunity to provide valid information to say we should do something different than the 1,500-foot setback that we currently have in place.
Maybe the time has come not to support the pipeline.
I don't know.
You know, That's, one of the things the moratorium is doing is it's delaying making a hard decision. I understand that.
Which hard decision? I'm sorry, Jerry.
Pardon me?
Which hard decision?
Well, you know, either you support the pipeline or you don't support the pipeline. I mean, either from a personal point of view, and you carry that personal point of view over to your duties as a commissioner, I mean, you're gonna have to, you know, either make a decision, yes, we're in for real, and we want the pipeline, or we're not sure we want the pipeline, and let's just not say, yeah, we support it. Because what good is the pipeline gonna do for the county?
I'm lost on where you're coming from here.
Well, okay.
So if you think that I don't vote for the 30-day extension of the moratorium, I'm in favor of the pipeline, is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that eventually, Brown County is gonna have to be known as, yes, we support the pipeline, or no, we do not support the pipeline, eventually, someday, somewhere.
And then that's next on the agenda too.
You know, so, you're right, I mean, so that, you know, that's what I'm saying, is right now, the debate.
Please enter your audio PIN followed by the
I'm
pound
sorry
or
I opened my
hash
mouth.
sign. If you do
Forgive
not
me.
have a PIN, just press pound.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to extend the current moratorium for 30 days, and at the same time, start working on language for a new moratorium. We have a motion by Denner, and a second by Weeks. Is that accurate? Are we ready to vote? I think I'm gonna call for a roll call vote. If you're in favor of that motion, raise your hand. If you're opposed, raise your hand. Okay, the motion fails. Would someone like to make another motion? I can't, or I would. I would make the motion that, given the fact that our current moratorium is set to expire tomorrow, that we let it expire and ask the state's attorney to immediately start working on language for us to review, and whether that takes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I think it's pretty evident here today, there's a lot of questions over what we can or can't do, what's legal and what isn't legal. You know, this is, again, uncharted territory, but we'll let the state's attorney draft language for a new moratorium that would be based on the decision of the PUC.
I'd simply suggest that we don't need a motion for that. We can simply direct the state's attorney's office to do that and put it on the agenda for our consideration when it's ready. And I'm in favor of that.
If we don't do anything, it just sunsets stuff.
Correct.
With the intention of drafting a new moratorium, is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can direct him, I believe, without a motion.
Jared?
The new moratorium, so you get working on that. If we just put it on for 2 or 3 months, we still don't hit the deal in November when the PHMSA. I think we should put it on long enough to get through and see what they actually say, so there's some federal stuff and federal guidelines that go off of. If you keep it on for then we don't have to have this debate kind of again, 3 months. You know, if we just go 2 months or 3 months even for the PUC thing, there's still other things coming out. Guess we'll learn and see how the PUC thinks about this. Maybe they just say, no, there's no permit, and hopefully that's the end gate for all of us on this topic. But if it does go through, the check goes, I don't know when they're gonna try to, because that deal in November 2024 is when they come out. Even if they give them the permit out there, time they go through all the eminent domain trials and all that, I mean, you're still gonna be, they're not gonna be able to just, okay, they got it, let's start digging. But that gives you guys a lot of time for other questions to be done. I think that when the next one goes on, it should go at least past the PHMSA deal in November. Just kind of my input on that type of deal, so.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, if we consider it, that would be my expectation, that would be the intent, that it would go that far. But I would also like to say, a year ago tomorrow, I was reluctant to put the moratorium in place, because a year goes by pretty quickly. And as Ross had indicated, that was a bullet. And you only get so many of those in situations like that. Quite frankly, I still think it was premature, because essentially, our setback regulations are very little change to what they were that day, a year ago plus a day. So from a positioning standpoint, quite frankly, very little, if anything, has changed.
Well, But that's why.
in where we're at in this county, with or without the moratorium. The setback regulations they have to meet, either get a special exception or be 1,500 feet back. That hasn't changed in the last year and a half. That's still the same. And
I'm just saying, it might, knowing PHMSA rules, it might be, woo, 1,500 isn't enough with this. That way if the moratorium's on, then pick a different gun up if we shot that bullet.
right, and if they come back and if there's better information, and this is open at any point in time, if there's good, sufficient, credible information to say this needs to be changed, whether it's for this or consolidated feedlot operation or setbacks from a high-density industrial complex from where we got from residential or any of the rest of that stuff, all that stuff's open to go through the process to review. This is subject to review at any point in time when better information comes up, and I'm absolutely not reluctant to take that on when that's there. Fair enough?
Yep, fair enough.
Dennis, one last.
You know, I guess, I think the group realizes that you folks you commissioners are in opposition to this pipeline. I don't think there's any question about that because of the material that's been sent out to PUC about the actions that you've taken. The attorneys that are involved in all of this are gonna drag this thing out, and they're gonna try to confuse things as much as they possibly can. You're gonna get all kinds of advice from this side and that side and every side, which you already have, but I think the group here realizes that you folks are in opposition, but are trying to do the right things and take the right steps to get the thing stopped. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Doug, go ahead.
I don't believe we need a motion, we'll just let the current sunset. And I don't know that we probably just need to put on the agenda to have something drafted to find out what we can do for a new moratorium next Tuesday. I mean, we don't know if we're even legally can create a new moratorium regards to this, but I think we start down that, so we let this one sunset without a motion as of tomorrow, and we continue to find out what we can do for a new moratorium.
And direct the state's attorney, and if they've found out information by next Tuesday, we'll put it on the agenda. If not, they may need another week to research it.
We got 28 days from right now until the next planning and zoning meeting. If they,
Right.
I mean, they're gonna probably start putting stuff in possibly, and I know it's gonna cause some.
The deadline's this Friday for next month's meeting.
So, all right,
So
exactly.
we-
So we got at least 28 days, so
We
I
have
mean,
some protection.
it would be nice to
Right.
get it done sooner rather than later, but let's make sure that we get it done right.
Okay, we're all clear, we're gonna direct the state's attorney to start immediately on researching what we can and can't do, drafting verbiage for potential new moratorium.
If we do find out that we can do another moratorium, who wants to help with the drafting of that? You guys are the legislative body, it's your moratorium. I feel like there should be commission participation.
Any one of us feel comfortable with that language? You okay, Mike?
Well, I'm not an attorney, I guess, as far as the language portion, I'll put that on you guys. But, I'll be, I can be
The idea,
involved. Yeah.
the concept.
Yep.
Can
The
you write the,
concept would be the wrong forward.
can you write
I
the
can look at it
basic
too, I mean.
Yeah.
format and then have a couple
We can do that
commissioners
too.
sit down with you and see what
Yeah.
you wanna change?
Okay,
Like, just get,
if we can get that far.
if we get the general part done, then the two commissioners could sit with you after that and decide how we wanna change or add to it.
Okay.
I believe Commissioner Dennard engaged, both volunteered to work with the state's attorney, is that correct? I think there's no further action necessary. I think we've covered that fairly adequately. Pretty clear where everyone stands. I appreciate everyone's time and coming in today and the input. I think it's quite evident, as former Commissioner Pikert said, it's pretty clear where the commission stands. We're in support of landowners' rights in Brown County, and we will continue to work to the best of our ability to ensure that everyone's being treated fairly as this process moves forward. So, anything else on this issue? If not, we will move on to the next issue, and that is to discuss a resolution on CO2 eminent domain. Commissioner Dennard has drafted a resolution, which is merely a statement of support that we need eminent domain reform in South Dakota. Is that kind of a good
Yeah.
summation?
Yeah, that's right. And there should be a couple copies floating around out here. I think I passed out 4 or 5 of them or so there should be a few out there. And I think what Dennis had said, and what Dwayne had reiterated, I think it's clear we're all in opposition to this. We're all in favor of landowners' rights. There's obviously some strategy involved in what you do or don't do, but I think what this resolution does is it gets at the root of the problem, because I think we all wish in this chamber that we could do more, but we know we are at least somewhat limited based on federal law and state law. But this gets at the root of the problem, and that's that there needs to be some legislative changes made in Pierre by the governor and by the House and the Senate. As we all know, the House worked on several pieces of legislation and did pass one out. Representative Perry helped with that, and I appreciate your work on this and the work of several others, especially from this area. We want to just send a message to the governor and again to our legislators that action needs to be taken. Our current laws are not sufficient, and it's time that we tighten that up and do something that actually protects our landowners. And I'm hoping that Pierre and the governor and the legislature will do that. So with that, I would move adoption of the resolution that we pass it today.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Dennert, second by Weiss, to approve the language in the resolution on CO2 eminent domain reform. Ernie, go ahead.
I think it's appropriate, especially after all the discussion we've had here and stuff, and I don't know who, but I would like to have it read aloud. It's fairly brief, and I think it would behoove us, if you don't mind.
Yep, Mr. Dennert, go ahead.
A resolution in support of eminent domain reform. Whereas the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution states, "Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation." Whereas the South Dakota State Constitution provides that private property shall not be taken for public use or damaged without just compensation. Whereas the omission of private use from these laws implies a complete prohibition on taking of private property for non-public purposes. Whereas on July 6, 2023, hundreds of citizens held a rally in Pierre in support of revisions to the South Dakota eminent domain law, culminating with approximately 2,000 signatures in support of eminent domain reform. Whereas the Brown County Board of Commissioners is in support of the constitutional rights of property owners. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Brown County Commissioners is in support of the governor and the legislature revising South Dakota law to eliminate the taking of private property for non-public use.
Thank you.
Thank you for your efforts on that, Commissioner Dennert. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Again, thank you. I think that sends a message. It's time to change some of our laws. Next up, public hearing for special malt beverage license, South Dakota Snow Creek Festival.
Thank you all for being here this morning.
Thank you, everyone. And I apologize for the technical difficulties we're having.
Thank you, Commission. Thank you. You guys put a lot of, you earned your salary, let's put it that way.
Thank you.
When it's big raise, we got this,
Yeah.
too, right?
Mr. Carl.
Thank you.
I move the special vote.
Second.
For Snow Creek.
Okay, we have a motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss, to approve the special malt beverage license for the Snow Queen Festival at the clubhouse. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, we have first reading of ordinances 247, 248, 249, and 250. All reads out.
Ordinance 247, an ordinance amending Title 4, Second Division, Brown County Ordinance as amended to rezone certain private property. Petition filed by Toby Dodman.
Motion by Weiss. Second by Gage. Is there anyone here to speak to ordinance 247? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Ordinance 248, an ordinance amending Title 4, Second Revision, Brown County Ordinance as amended to rezone certain described property, filed by Joel and Kimberly Carta.
Second. I'm sorry, who made the motion? Commissioner Weiss makes a motion, second by Feldheim. Is there anyone here to speak to ordinance 248? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Ordinance 249, an ordinance amending Title IV, Second Revision, Brown County Ordinance as amended to rezone certain described property, filed by Eric Knowlton.
Move. Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. Is there anyone here to speak to ordinance 249? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Ordinance 250, an ordinance amending Title IV, Second Revision, Brown County Ordinance as amended to rezone certain described property, filed by Barry Winkler.
Motion by Gage, second by Weiss. Is there anyone here to speak to ordinance 250? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, Scott Bader, Planning and Zoning Director, approved Planning and Zoning Board changes and recognize Darwin Benton for 15 years of service. Morning, Scott.
Good morning. Darwin requested resignation and retirement. So then the June meeting was his last meeting. We gave him a plaque. And then our alternate, Carrie Weisenberger, will be stepping up. She agrees to step up to the full-time position for Planning Commission. And then that has to be recognized by the commission, since we appoint alternates and Planning Commission by the state law.
Okay.
So Darwin had 15 years in, and we celebrated that with some treats and so forth. And then I'll be looking for alternate.
I want to publicly thank Darwin Benton for his many years of dedicated service. I know he served very diligently on the Planning and Zoning Board and put a lot of thought into his decisions and traveled extensively, gaining additional information and knowledge to do his job correctly. So, very much appreciate his many years of dedication.
Thank you.
Excellent. So we need a motion to acknowledge Carrie as the new Planning and Zoning member.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, item number 9, Stacy Gassman was scheduled. He had an engagement that he had to be at by 11, so he, based on the crowd in the room, he knew he probably wouldn't be able to do that. He'll reschedule. Next up, Dirk Rogers, Highway Superintendent, discuss federal local bridge program and department update.
Hi.
Hello, Dirk. You're late.
I'm really late.
What is it?
You just about could've got a full half day in before you got here.
I know, good thing I started early today, guys. I was gonna tell Lynn that's a dirty trick, putting me at the end, but that's because everyone else doesn't wanna be after me, I'm sure. First thing I wanna mention is I talked about those local federal bridges last week, and I thought maybe there's one that would not be eligible, and it wasn't. There's also 2 others that aren't eligible, although I'm gonna look into and see if I can argue a different point with them. That one is just specific for, based on the structural condition of them. And the ones that are pipe almost never get to structural failure, unless they rust completely through. But, so the Hull Crossing, and that one's too good. It would qualify, it's just still too good. This one and the Hull Crossing are the other 2 that they're pipe. And so, just within the parameters, the way the definitions of the program is, they don't qualify, although I'm gonna call them and have a visit about, there's something called functionally obsolete. The only problem we have is those both were bridges at one time. So, at any rate, I'm gonna look for some other candidates to throw into the program. But at the same time, we're getting down to where there's some pretty obscure bridges, Yeah, because unfortunately, we fixed everything before all the free money came along. That's basically my comment on that. I mean, and those ones that don't qualify doesn't mean that something's not gonna happen there ever. It's just, okay, we can't use this program for that. We'll figure something else out.
They have parameters.
Yep, to fit it in the box somehow. Just a quick little update on what we're doing. We're getting Road 5, the final touches on that. They have to do a couple dig outs, but they'll start shooting oil up there, getting ready to pave it the next 2 weeks, I would assume. By the end of next week, they should be going on it.
we're at, we got about 2 days to get back to Columbia on what we're paving. And then we'll have 6 miles left, basically just the north 6 miles on 16 coming up to 10. We're gonna take a little time out, do a couple other things, and kinda get caught up on, we're at a stopping point. We're gonna have to load up the paver to move it to the next spot on 16 anyway. So once you get to that point, we'll just bring it in and we'll probably haul the gravel and catch up on a couple things. So anybody that freaks out, we'll be going back and finishing that. It's just we're gonna pull everything out of there, so that's gonna generate a response.
It's free stress test.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, I know. Yeah, this is all pretty mundane after your last hour and a half, so, and the Elm Lake Road's moving along, boy, when you go up and look at how much dirt they're moving, that's not a big dirt project compared to dirt projects, but
still a lot of dirt.
Yeah, still a lot of dirt up there. A lot of rock too they're running into, but we'll have some extra riprap when that's done, so. But no, they're moving along. I hope to go up there. If someone wants to go up and look at that sometime, call me, because I think we can physically get in there a lot easier now. You won't have to put on the waders and ride on the luggage rack or anything. I think we can get in there.
One dog.
Yeah. So that was about all I have. We're just, other than that, we're mowing, and we did just get Allison found us a person, so we had a new hire start yesterday, and easing him in. We'll see how that goes, and there's potential for another interview coming up. And for those of you that have asked me that, it's hard for me when people say, oh, are you short on people? And I'm like, well, I've been cutting like 15 positions, so it's kind of hard to tell until we start trying to put some of them back. But I think we've been fortunate. We're at the very bottom end, okay, I guess. But it's nothing I'm too worried about. As long as we have enough to run the snow routes, that's sort of the main thing, I guess. After that, you can hire stuff done, so.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
10 and 9, where you turn to go to Westport there, you had some cones there that somebody come along and flattened out. Is there any time when the blade goes up there, they can straighten that gravel out right in front of,
You talking
Allison?
south of town?
Just where you turn to go on 9 west, right in the corner of 10 and 9.
Okay.
Right by Allison,
Oh, yeah,
there's
yeah.
those two big,
Yep.
there's gravel there, and there's getting to be about a foot hole. And next time the blade goes by, he could just probably, your cones are flat, they're gone.
Sure.
Somebody run them over.
The target. If you ever get lost, just put a cone out, because the contractor will come by and run it over, and then you can ask him where you're at.
John, could you repeat that word for word, please?
I'll send you an email. But,
So, yeah, the gravel that was put in those holes is really, could be leveled a little bit.
If you're up there, keep going east a couple miles, it's 9 just as you cross 14 and go east is extremely washboard. I mean, it's bad.
east of 14's
Just for probably not even 100 yards.
You guys hammering the brakes pretty good when you come
Wasn't
to the
me, but it
intersection?
might have been somebody. My equipment's not big enough, but.
All right.
I don't know, that really got bad quick, so.
Need a little shot of rain so the binder goes back in.
Yeah. I think we hauled, didn't we haul across there when we were graveling over there? That probably didn't do it any good either.
Yeah, did you guys cross, or did you turn on 14 there?
Where the heck were we graveling? We were
I know.
graveling between 16 and 14, weren't we? I think so.
What am I seeing? 10, well, maybe it was both.
Yeah.
I know you did on the west side of 14, for sure,
Yep.
so.
Yeah, no, we went the other way too. So
But you
that
did
might
some
be-
work east, because
Yep.
there was a couple of bad spots you guys fixed up nice, so.
Okay.
Anybody else have any issues? My road's fine.
Okay, good.
Good.
And I'm sure yours is fine too, right?
Well, actually, they get city streets tore up pretty bad too, but.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mouse in the maze trying to get down here, yeah.
Yeah, we sat next to Robin at the DOT meeting the other night.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Commissioner Gage, you're good?
I guess we're all right.
All right.
All right.
Haven't been on the road.
Oh, I'll be,
Derek's got a rule, only 2 commissioners at a time.
Yeah. Once we gotta make sure there's not 3 that are all mad, that's what.
I just thought it was 1 request per week.
No, I just got 2, no,
You can request all you want.
Yeah, yeah.
Thursday and Friday I won't be in the office, but you can call me, I'll be around,
I got a couple personal things going on those days, but.
All right.
Well, yeah, I'm available. Hey, can I have a piece of candy? I didn't get for breakfast, and then the meeting's like 2 hours past.
Take 2 or 3 for the service,
All right.
You want some peanuts?
I should be all right.
Okay.
Thanks, Derek.
All right, moving on to the consent calendar. Lynn?
Approval of the general meeting minutes from July 11th.
Move. Second. Motion by Weiss, second by Dennert. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claims and payroll.
Move. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
HR report.
Move. Second.
Motion by Dennert, second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Sit out.
Travel request.
Move. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Lottery permit.
Move. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Fireworks permit.
Move. Second.
Motion by Dennert, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And just a note on that, we are gonna add an additional line on there for another date, just in case this happens again due to weather. That's what it is out there. Rescheduling.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, have an alternate for those activities.
Yeah.
Backup plan.
Yep.
So that when we issue the first one, there'll be an alternate date, so we don't have to go through the process.
Through it again.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Set hearing date and authorize advertisement for alcoholic beverage temporary permits for special events.
Move.
Motion by Weiss.
Second.
Second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I think under other business, Commissioner Gage, you had something you'd like to
Yep,
address?
if you don't mind, just wanted to, briefly read a couple of paragraphs from a letter that I was forwarded, just to kind of highlight one of the positions that the county has here down at, that services veterans and down at the VA office. This was sent to the, Captain Brian Rorick from the 147th Field Artillery, the Army National Guard unit here in Aberdeen. This was sent to him and from Dana Nichols, who was out of the Alaska Air National Guard, retired. It says, "Greetings. Please convey my sincere appreciation for First Sergeant Aaron Wahlberg's professional conduct and effort as Brown County Veteran Service Officer in providing extensive assistance with my VA benefits claim. His thorough knowledge of the completed VA processes and expedience in researching service-related medical records resulted in my recent receiving a significant upgrade in my VA disabilities benefits. My being terminally ill, this has greatly improved the status of my personal affairs and the benefit security, which I may now leave for my wife. We are both very grateful. In 2016, I retired as an E8 from the Alaskan Air National Guard. I recognize First Sergeant Wahlberg's presence as a military professional representing the U.S. Army and South Dakota National Guard. He's clearly a strong leadership asset for the 147th Field Artillery, and his sincere conduct in assisting many veterans is commendable." And I just wanted to share that, not only just to kind of highlight what, him as an individual and what he does over there, but just to kind of get the word out that these are some of the things that, are offered to veterans in the area. I mean, even if you are receiving benefits, reach out and see if you're receiving the benefit, because things change all the time, and he would be more than happy to help you with that, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And along that line, last Thursday, we had our Lake Region meeting over in Webster, and their veteran service officer, who's been on the job for about a year now, kind of gave us a report of the effectiveness of his hiring and the number of new veterans that he's been able to service, and what a critical role our veteran service officers play for our veterans, because you had the Vietnam War that, a lot of those guys are reaching an age where they're no longer needing service, but now they're seeing a new influx of the Middle East War, the Iraqi War, and the war in Afghanistan, who are coming back with numerous issues and rely heavily on the veteran service officer to help them through some of their trials and tribulations. So we appreciate the work that they do across the state.
You gave a lot of good information at that talk.
He did. Yeah, very good information. Anything else to come before the Brown County Commission this morning? Go ahead. Mr. Perry.
Yeah. As always, I like to keep you guys informed, but, first I'll compliment Mike and Dirk. They were at that STIP meeting this last week, and, the county was well represented. They had some good comments, and I think you guys could be really happy with what the state's doing for the county and all that good stuff. But anyway, the other thing that I wanted to mention, and most of you might know, but just so that you do know, we did have a petition go out for a special session, and that's for the legislature, and it is for land rights, and the important thing on this is, even if the petition doesn't make it to the point where we have a special session, the landowners will then know who the people are that support them, and on the other side, who the people are that are not supporting them. So I think it's gonna serve a purpose. Hopefully we get to the point where it's actually, we're in session and it'll be successful. So, like you guys are sitting here, and I know that you support the landowners. There's a group of legislators that do support the landowners, and we're not crazy people. What we are is people that really like food, and farmers produce food, and we need to take care of our farmers, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl.
Does anyone have a need for executive session today?
I
Ross?
can do a short legal.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to go into executive.
Move. Second.
Okay, motion by Gage, second by Denner to go into executive session for legal purposes. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are in exec. Lights back on. Out of exec, with no action as a result. Is there anything else to come before the Brown County Commission this morning?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. Plan on spending a little extra time next Tuesday when we're done reviewing the budget. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.